Welcome to A Day in the Future today with George Haber. I have the great pleasure of having this discussion together with him, and I'm really grateful for the fact that I have this opportunity of talking for a full hour about information and technology in general and how AI will shape the future. George Haber has been born in Oradea, Romania, and he has been shaping the world from an early age. During high school, he created the first discotheque in his native city, gaining massive popularity back then. He emigrated to Israel after that for college and moved to Silicon Valley in 1988. He invented the DVD with his first tech company, Comcore Multimedia. Since then, he has had multiple successful exits in the space in the range of hundreds of millions. And currently, he's actively involved with Crest Fund, the fund management company he founded in 2016. There, the focus is to AFI anything that can be done. His maxims along the years have been the following. The first one being in 1993, if it can be done, software will do it. In 2016, if it can be done in software, AI will do it better. And the most recent one in 2020, AI does it better if it can be done. I have the great pleasure of introducing him and welcoming him to our podcast. Hi, George. Really pleasure having the discussion with you today.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to talk to you and to AIify your podcast as well.
Looking forward to it. Today we will be talking about how information is shaping our reality, because it is really important to understand the external variables that influence the way we experience life altogether. And for that, I would like to start with triggering questions, I would say. What can you consider real in the age of information right now?
That's a very, very deep question, and we could spend 10 hours dicing it and slicing it and trying to understand. So the reality itself exists only within each and every person, right? And it's based on perception, on what we hear, what we see, what we feel, touch, and maybe some other higher level intuition things, which all of them are a result of our brain developing from the moment we have a brain, and 1 month old or less than that actually, until the moment that we die. Now, every person has a different life experience, has a different DNA that creates a different brain. So the perception of each and every one of us is very different from the perception of the others. But in average, right, in average, there is kind of something that is perceived and can be declared good or bad or ununderstood. So what is real for each person depends on the perception of that person, how the brain of that person developed, what kind of life experiences did that person have, what books he read, what music he or she listened to, and a million other things.
So basically, what I understand actually is that we create our own reality. Like,
Absolutely.
each and every one of us through our own perspective. Okay, we might have some overlapping perspectives with others that might be called common reality, but in the end, each one of us has that unique reality given by his unique experience, his unique or her unique DNA, and so on. So I would ask you then, if you are to be 1,000 people with 1,000 different perspectives, looking at the same thing with a very high variety of perspectives and life experiences and so on, what can be considered reality in that case for the majority of the people or for everyone together?
Right. So this is where averages come in to play. And by the way, reality it's also defined by some physical constraints. So we can live, only if the temperature is bigger than, I don't know, 10, 15 degrees, unless we have clothes, and then we can live at -5 or 10. And below, I don't know, 40, 45 degrees Celsius.
Exactly.
And only if we have liquid to drink and food to give us the energy for the brain to think and the stomach not to make us panicky and run for food. So that is kind of the environment that we can live in. Now, coming back to your question, yeah, it's a law of averages, and based on the religion that we learned, right? We believe that some things are good and some things are bad based on our life experiences that we had, based on the accidents that happened to us, the good things, the bad things. So all these absolutes that everybody thinks that there is truth and there is this and that are very relative. And by the way, that's where we are being manipulated masterfully by media or famous people who kind of tell us directly or in some subliminal way what we should think and how we should feel good and what we should be afraid of or ashamed of.
Exactly. That's why I wanted to start with this question, because what can you actually consider real or what can you consider not being tainted with, or what's actually there without any added influence that's trying to distort reality?
So it's a fantastic question, because this is where the foolish people or the rebels, the revolutionaries, the hippies, the nonconformists either commit suicide by being stupid and or create the next future. And the average people, the people that listen and want to live within the confines of what is defined as the right way to live, are usually useless because they don't change anything. They are just consuming resources without adding any new ideas or any new revolutions, or good or bad, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. Let's take it back a bit, because discussing with you last time before the podcast, you mentioned the fact that the earliest information, how can I say, evangelists were in Egypt, and you were saying about how the Pharaoh was actually the one that was, giving the information and altering a bit reality by doing so.
So, not necessarily the Pharaoh itself, but all the priests surrounding the Pharaoh, the messengers, right? And this is what we know from history. It's quite possible that there were other civilizations long before the Egyptians that we have no artifacts from or stories about. But the one that is capturing everybody's imagination is ancient Egypt and their society's structure, with one guy, the god, sitting on top, the pharaoh, surrounded by a circle of faithful servants or manipulators, because in case of Tutankhamun, right, the famous 9-year-old, the pharaoh, clearly the priests around him were the ones making the decisions, just telling Tutankhamun that he decided, and he probably said yes. Um, and then below the priests were the noble people who gave the message at the end to the poor and desperate, hardworking man that actually did and built the pyramids and did the work. And this societal structure actually didn't change that much. Even today, you have the multi-billionaires who are deciding who will become the president here and there by manipulating the media. And then the president, who believes that he's the pharaoh, will do whatever the billionaires tell him to do. And then we create these messages for the people to show them how they should live and what is nice and what is not nice and what is allowed and what is not allowed. And then people will fight between themselves so the nobles and the rich can keep the power.
The messaging just got subtler and subtler moving through history.
It is subtler and subtler and more destructive because talk about AI. Today, AI is used to understand from Facebook and Google and every other places where we as humans live and leave our digital footprint, to understand who we are, what we crave, what we want, and then through advertisers sell our weaknesses and our addictions to the advertisers, who will sell it to the manufacturers of products to satisfy that need or addiction that we had before or was created on the platform by super smart algorithms and psychiatrists and psychologists. You know, one of the shocking things is that if you look at Facebook, for example, or Google or Twitter, they have more psychiatrists and psychologists on their payroll that work together with the software engineers to do these A/B type experiments of showing you something red or showing you something blue and seeing how you react. And based on that, develop even more and more addictive ways to keep you slave. And that's the modern slavery. And going back to Tutankhamun and the Egyptians, you know, that was slavery. That's how it started. And it continued with the Greeks and with all the other major powers who used slaves to do the hard work and for the entertainment, right? The gladiators, it was the big show. I think the scary brilliance, and this is a negative term in a way, of capitalism was to realize that the most efficient slavery is the self-imposed slavery, where we all become the slaves of our ambitions, quote unquote, but those ambitions are not really ours. They were shown to us and with movies, with books, introduced in our brain to convince us that this is how we want to live. You know, a small house with a little bit of green in front, white fence, a dog, 2 cars, fancy clothes, one trip per year to some nice beach and so on and so forth. And this is how capitalism works, through self-imposed slavery. So it's still slavery. Freedom was maybe a dream that I had and many others like me in the 60s when we were hippies. And, you know, that's where the disco started also. It was free love and free this and free that. And that was also just a dream, because nothing is free. You have to work for things to be able to eat, and then you have to be part of the system. And it was the self-imposed slavery in the capitalist part of the world, or the real slavery in the communist part of the world.
It was more direct.
It was more direct, but a lot less efficient because only stupid people got up in the political chain. Sorry, not only stupid. Some were smart, but they kept their mouth closed because if they opened their mouth and told, I don't know, Brezhnev or Ceausescu or whoever was running the country that they lived in, something negative, they were sent to jail.
Yeah.
And maybe this is where AI can come in the future, is to actually liberate us from slavery, to create a
Okay,
system.
I'm really curious to get into that.
Yeah. So, these are the two systems that exist today, in slavery and self-imposed slavery.
Self-imposed slavery, how, or if it can be done like for normally, how can you separate the self-imposed slavery by, I know, actual changing, by being that, by going outside of that, comfort zone, by going outside of it? How can you separate the ones that have gone outside of that comfort zone and the ones that are within that self-imposed slavery still?
So,
Like, because
yeah,
are you going outside or are you still there?
right. So, like with everything else in mathematics, there is this very famous Gaussian curve where the vast majority of people are in the middle, and then there are the two extremes where very few people or objects or fall. And this is a approximation, of course, but I think the same is true with people. The very top, which is one extreme of the Gaussian curve, would be the oligarchs, the people in the 1% that are outside the system. They can do whatever they want. They have so much money and almost no obligations, right? You can buy an island, you can have super yacht, 20 wives, 100 servants, whatever. That's one extreme. And then the other extreme are the homeless, the people that have nothing to lose or nothing to gain. So these two extremes are outside the system, but everybody else is within the system, because when you're alone, you don't care that much. But once you have a family, a wife, kids, then you have to bring home enough money to feed the family, to give them clothing, to take them to school, to basically dedicate your life to your children. And that's what perpetuates the system in both cases, in the self-imposed or in the prison life under communism or whatever dictatorship.
And are there individuals that are moving or are able to move from within the system to the outlier? I don't know. And if so, okay. And if so, what do they do different, or what's different about them?
Accidents happen, good and bad accidents, right? Some people win the lottery and can be catapulted out of the Gaussian to be super rich for a while. If they make stupid investments, then they'll be kicked back into the right bitcoins or other investments, right, these days. And there are people who make really bad judgments and do become homeless or get in prison, and that's part of life, and that life is the scary life that keeps everybody in line to not become homeless or not lose everything they have and not be able to take care of their family. That's I don't know. Plus, there are the drugs that you go to sleep and you think that you're a billionaire or whatever by smoking something or eating some pills, or but that's again, it's an unfortunate.
You're not really outside.
You're not outside, but you think that you're outside. Your perception is that you're outside. You think that you're special, or people that go crazy for whatever reason, that think that Jesus touched them, or Muhammad told them to do something, or I don't know, they are birds and they can fly and they jump out of the window of a very tall building.
So from what I get, from what I get up until now, it's about the freedom to think for yourself. So I think that's like
Yes, and the courage to try to push yourself um, closer and closer to what you and your family want to see as their future.
exactly. So you were talking about like ancient Egypt, and that was the technology then of like distributing information through messengers. But moving along history, what were the next steps, and how did technology evolve and evolve up until today in our current age of information?
Right. So the speed with which the information is shared has collapsed from months, because it took months from the moment that the pharaoh said something.
Hmm.
His preachers read it to the public, and then the public walked to the next village and told them what they think that they heard, may not be exactly what they heard. Later on, the troubadours in Europe who went and were singing whatever, that was the speed at which information traveled. It could take a year to go around the globe, or more, 10 years to have some scientific discovery in one part of the world reach the other part of the world. As society evolved, and as writing and reading became uh, more important, although in multiple languages, it was still a very divided world. Information traveled in the beginning with writing on pieces of paper by hand. Then Gutenberg, or some other people, but we know of Gutenberg as the inventor of the press. Maybe in other regions of the world, somebody did the same thing. But by the way, an interesting observation, many inventions around the world happen more or less at the same time, within 10, 15 years or 5 years. It's very interesting because but that's a different topic.
Some of them got to be more popular, yeah.
Yes, but once the press was invented, then information could be sent within weeks instead of years or months. Then radio waves were invented, and the Morse signals for. By the way, in most inventions, the military were the first ones that used that invention to be more efficient in wars. And then it became used by civil society, and of course, once you had radio signals, after the Morse code became the AM radio and the FM radio and the television, and then suddenly information took about 1 day. In the morning, it was recorded on the TV, and in the evening, when you went to watch the news. Um, and then the next big explosion or revolution happened with the invention of the internet and connected networks, where information could be shared around the globe within seconds. And then with the applications of social media, uh, information now can be bidirectional, because before that, before social media, it was a broadcast type information. There was one guy, the local pharaoh or the local party chief or whomever, the local news anchor, who said something that everybody was listening to and influenced their perception. Now, with the internet, it's bi-directional. People actually can create messages that, if they become popular, are now influencing the decisions of the government based on the fact of what's trending on Twitter or what's trending on TikTok and so on and so forth. So this is creating a new world order that did not exist before. And yes, there are many very well-paid people on the internet doing podcasts like yourself, or video casts or TikTok bullshit that are making a lot of money because the media, the very rich people need to control these people to have the message that they desire being spread instead of anarchy and chaos.
Well, the term used for them is pretty straightforward. Influencers, like it's really that. Yeah.
Yes, but they are mostly paid influencers, because otherwise, they will influence, and it's a normal thing, right? They will do whatever they need to do to become more famous and make more money. Because money is the god. The real god is money for everybody.
Yeah.
Because it allows us to survive.
And it allows us to shape our reality. If you were to go like,
yes, to shape
it's,
our
it's
reality.
the tool that
It's
the tool that gives you the possibility to instantly shape.
Absolutely.
So I really want to say this. Thank you for the short, brief history of information. It was really great. Like that was really good. So today, what's the latest? Like, what's now the latest development, or what's the biggest or the most performant technology through which information is shared at a moment? And from your perspective and your experience and what you know in the field right now, what is the next big step, and what's keeping us from getting there?
So what is keeping us from getting there? And we don't know what there is really. But what's keeping us is our inertia and our fear of the unknown. Because every time there is a new technology, there are the pioneers who created it, like video compression in my old DVD days. And then there are the target customers who will use that technology. And then there are the people who will benefit from all that. And then an equilibrium is created and the technology spreads, and then it becomes normal, right? So it's a very complex question that we are talking about right now, and I don't know exactly what the next big thing is. But if we look at the progress and history from the pharaoh down to the million little pharaohs, the influencers, right, who create these messages that shape the reality and the conception of people. I think letting this thing go on its own by the use of AI will be the next big life-changing event in human history. Because as you mentioned in the beginning, Haber's laws started with, if it can be done by software, it will. That was in the 80s when I realized that software can process information better than big pieces of hardware. Up until the last one, which I said, 2, 3 years ago that AI does it better if it can be done, which means that whatever AI is focusing on, it will give better results than the best possible human.
Mm-hmm.
And the reasons for it are pretty simple and complex at the same time. The simple fact is that AI works much faster than humans and has no bias and doesn't sleep at night and it's not tired and millions of other things. The more complicated variables have to do with the algorithms in AI that are improving at a speed that the human brain cannot conceive. And as such, I see the future of us all being much better with the use of AI in every field of existence. If you look at the war in Ukraine, and it's driven by AI, the US and the European NATO forces are using AI to predict where the Russian tanks or airplanes will be. And in the beginning, they were able to shut them down like ducks. Now the Russians have learned that lesson and they're using AI as well. So war, then in medicine, AI can detect the sicknesses and flaws much, much earlier than the best doctors can. And AI, if it has access to all your personal information, which I think it should, it can predict based on your DNA, on your family history, on where you live, what you eat, much, much better than any doctor can. The same with the legal system. All these social systems, from the pharaohs to today's countries, are depending on the society, the majority of the people that are considered the stupid ones that can be easily manipulated. But they all depend on this society believing that the system above them is correct and believing that the system is taking care of them,
Mm-hmm.
which is rarely the case, because in the vast majority of cases, the system takes care of the people running the system, and the population is considered as slaves or stupid people that can be easily manipulated. That's the sad reality. But people believe in fairness because they think that the judiciary systems, that the laws, that the system will protect them. And then when they have an accident and they need to sue somebody to pay for whatever damage they had in the accident, they realize that it takes 3, 4 years until they get their money. And then they get upset and they go crazy and they kill the other guy or whatever. I think that justice is the most important thing in any society.
Mm-hmm.
And justice provided by AI is instantaneous. So if you had any judicial problem, an AI well trained in the laws of the country and in the laws of the region, and maybe in your religious beliefs and whatever, can tell you if you are right
Mm-hmm.
and why you are right, or can tell you that you're wrong, you have a misconception, you understood something the wrong way, and stop you from becoming vindictive and angry and revolted in a matter of minutes instead of years. And it can be done very easily on your phone.
I I fully agree with this, but I have to add something to this discussion so we can explore it. Um, the danger that I see in this is reinforcement learning. The fact that you would keep, and along history, each progress that we've made as humankind has been made through innovation, and innovation has come up through creativity. Okay, well, creativity is when you take something from multiple, like perspectives. So something that just comes up that wasn't within that system yet, something that's new, something that can help us move towards progress in ways in which couldn't have been done before of the constraints of and the set rules that were existing at the moment. So this is the part that we'd like to explore a bit.
Absolutely. But AI can do it better if it can be done. So AI in law, right, can very easily learn from the AI in healthcare which uh, new sicknesses are coming and change the law to keep people from getting sick, right? So just trust that AI can do it better if it can be done, and I do trust that. Now, will AI make mistakes? Absolutely, because we make mistakes too. But AI will learn a million times faster from the mistake than people do. And I can give you an example. My son, when he first took my car to drive around with some friends, he got into an accident. It wasn't bad, it just damaged the car. Um, and if you think about my son telling his friends what mistake he made, it took him probably a couple of weeks until most of his friends knew what mistake he made, and they learned to avoid the same mistake. Now, with the self-driving car, if one self-driving car makes a mistake within a second, every other 100,000 or million cars in the same category will learn to avoid the same mistake. Now that is, a billion times faster.
You're absolutely right. In this case, we're moving the discussion from narrow AIs to a more general AI that can actually, complement the insights from different domains in order to create
Yes,
better. Mhm.
yes, yes, and that's why AIify your business is my motto now. I mean, whatever business you are in, make it use AI, because it will be better than if you don't.
It's pretty simple. Like if you were to have more speed, have more quality,
Right.
and do it at a more efficient cost, like
Yep.
it's an obvious choice of doing it.
Yes.
And what other current technologies or current tools that people use on their day-to-day lives can act as catalyzers or as catalysts, okay, for taking information sharing to the next level? Why I'm asking this? Because there are different technologies that have deeply influenced the way we live life today. Like you were mentioning social media, also blockchain, and there are many more that are coming. And how do those intersect with AI, if they do?
So they should, because again, all technologies use information to make better decisions, right? That's so sorry. The technology is the fundamental building block. But from building blocks to build something useful, you need to use information. Um, I think AI should be looked at as a tool. I mean, it's no different from the fire that made us able to survive in the jungle and eat and keep warm when winter came, and uh, or no different than, I don't know, the bullet that was the follower of the arrow to kill or protect us. That's what AI. It's a technology, and we should use it we should use it everywhere because it's a general technology. It's not only for one domain like bullets or arrows to kill or bombs, or it's not only for like video compression to consume media. AI, it's like a brain. It's the connection of all the brains in the world together. And this is an interesting topic. What happens when we are connected through some brain, either implants or a mask that you wear or whatever, to the hive, the Borg, the central brain where we all feel and think the same.
That's a really curious point in time that we will get to learn. Like, just so I make a point on AI and how you were saying it's a tool. I see it as the tool that helps us understand reality at an exponential speed. So it's like the tool that humans have created in order to help us understand and transform reality faster and faster, because it's something that we cannot process on ourselves individually, and it has come to our aid to do just that.
Absolutely. And I think it is essential for the survival of the next race that will be a combination of humans with AI and prosthetics and robotics. Uh, the climate, and climate is a small world, because we should think about solar systems and galaxies and universes
Yes, yes.
in which the changes occur and they influence the climate on each and every inky dinky planet. But those things are changing. I mean, if the theory of the universe's creation, the expansion model or the contraction model are right or wrong, it doesn't matter. It's clear that we are just a temporary existing species, because at some point we'll be either too cold or too hot for humans to survive. And doesn't matter if we change the oxygen in the atmosphere or CO2. These are minor things that may make a difference for 1 or 2 generations, but the long trend is that the universe goes through these cycles. And in the universe, there are a billion galaxies, and in the galaxies, there are a billion Earths, and we are on one of them. Now, maybe all the others have no people, not likely, statistically speaking. Maybe they have different forms of life that don't have a body. They just, I don't know, sand that moves and thinks and survives and makes sex with the other sand. I don't know. These are just science fiction.
You cannot even conceive. I agree. It's not conceivable because it's not in our reality yet, at least, or it won't be.
Right. But in our reality, the fact is that the Earth climate is changing. The population of the Earth is increasing. Everybody wants to live like Jeff Bezos, to build a super yacht and blow up bridges in Rotterdam, and so they can take his yacht out and go to Mars. And it's impossible for everybody to do that. But with the help of AI, if you can actually feel that you're taken care of, your health, your nutrition, your desires, and at the same time have the experiences implanted in your head that your fantasy wants, then you don't need to destroy the earth, right? You can live that. So I think the next big step is a hybrid species, is a species that it's us with the power of AI, either in our head or connected to our neighbors, creating the next generation of humans or next generation of whatever galaxy living creatures.
That's what I've been thinking and talking for a while now. The fact that the moment when we can go to the next level in us as human species is the moment in which we can not change necessarily the way we live outside, but the way we live inside, like
Right.
consciousness. How do we get to that next level of consciousness? Maybe this also relates to the fact that I meditate quite regularly. I don't know if you do, and well, I've had some experiences in which I could feel that we are all one, or that you are the universe. You are everything and nothing at the same time, and that's the beauty of it.
I completely agree with that, and it's also an absolute necessity for humans to survive, because climate is changing and viruses evolve, and COVID-19 or COVID-99 or monkeypox or whatever new threats to the health of humanity are being created and spread much faster than they used before, right? So everything has a good and a bad part. Every technical innovation can be used for good, right, or bad. Travel to see the world is fantastic, but because of travel, viruses now move much faster from place to place. And everybody becomes sick, and everybody's immune system is taxed with viruses that their DNA never contemplated, because those viruses existed only in some remote parts of the world. And we eat things that our digestive system was not built to make, and so on and so forth. So
Yeah,
millions of
yeah,
things.
yeah.
Absolutely, the becoming self-aware first, which is in meditation, and you understand yourself, you learn how to control your breathing, your blood flow, and so on and so forth. And then how to do that and connect the whole world will happen, unless we as a stupid species trigger a world war. And we are that close to it, by the way. It's what's happening now with Russia and Ukraine. It's the closest we ever were to a world war, and China jumping in because they are now the next superpower and want to whatever. But that's it's a totally different topic.
I know it's another different, very big topic that we could get in, but
And there also, if you would give this problem to an AI system, the decisions it makes will be significantly better than the emotional decision or the political decision that some politicians make in order to save themselves or pretend to care about the little soldiers that are dying and suffering.
yeah, that's something that
So AI can save and will save humanity from its mistakes, I believe.
and do you see any risks, if there are any risks with that scenario?
Yeah,
And
sure.
what are some risks that we need to be aware of from now?
Okay. Okay. So whatever you use, it also uses you. And what I mean, when we were in Pharaoh's land and we started using fire to keep ourselves warm and not freeze to death in the night, we became dependent on fire. When we started dressing to shield ourselves from animals, or right now we cannot walk naked because we would die. While the dogs and the cats can live outside in the freezing night and survive in the very hot day. Humans cannot anymore. We actually reduced the temperature range in which we can survive, I'm sure significantly from what it was when we were Neanderthals.
Evolution is strange. Yeah.
Exactly. So my point is that whenever we use technology to make our life easier or better, we become addicted, and that technology is changing us. So it creates a dependence, right? We cannot exist now without clothing. We cannot exist without uh, food that we can buy from the supermarket or um, right. Although our grandparents, actually 2 generations, not that far away, were self-sufficient more or less. In the little villages or communities that they lived, they were relying on each other to be able to survive. Today, no, we cannot. We need a supermarket. We need a food chain.
I strongly believe that that's the path that we will need to go moving forward to strong local ecosystems that know how to act as one in cooperation with other strong local ecosystems. And that, because what globalization has done, it has practically fragmented all valuable things that can be created through strong localized cooperation.
Correct, and that benefits China greatly because they have cheap labor and they are using African cheap labor also. But I don't think we can go back. So this is very, I would say, romantic to think that we can go back to a simple living without technology. With using robotics and technology, yes, absolutely. I mean, you can build a simple robot that takes care of the garden, so Bunika and Buniku don't have to break their back bending and picking up and uh, with a laser kill all the little bugs that would eat your tomatoes instead of putting chemicals to poison the bug that also poisons the tomato and poisons you. So yes, with technology, absolutely, we can recreate the simple, healthy living. But this technology also means that we are all connected
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
and we become a hive. We become, like bees in a hive. We all act, and then the question is, who's the queen?
That's the
And
question. That's the question.
so, the AI is going to be the queen, not us. We will be all bee workers.
And how can, because in my thought, I see it that AI will be actually us, like an aggregated
Yeah,
us. That
it is. It's a perfect example and a perfect capturing because AI is just like us learning from the experiences that we show to the AI today. And, in the case of self-driving cars and drones, actually the AI gets the experiences from the images and the LiDAR and the radar and the temperature and all kind of other sensors that it has and builds its own intelligence. That artificial intelligence is no different. It's actually the same like human intelligence, except much faster, better connected.
and at different scale.
Right. Human intelligence means the capability to process plus the experiences that you were exposed to process them. The same with AI. So the AI will make mistakes, but will learn from those mistakes much, much faster and without shame and without bias. It will not try to hide the mistakes. A doctor that makes some mistakes and the patient dies has every interest in the world to hide its mistake. Because if the doctor recognizes that, yes, I caught the wrong artery, and that's why the guy died. I gave him the wrong medicine, or the nurse gave him the wrong medicine. Then they will be sued and fired, and their family will be angry. So they have every incentive to hide it, which is a problem.
It is.
Because the good thing is, whenever a mistake happens, is to learn from it, to share it. Oh, look what mistakes I made. You others don't make the same mistake. While the AI system, the way it's built properly, should immediately share its mistakes and learn and connect with all the other systems. That's how I see it. Now, I may be alone in the world and everybody else being scared of AI, but
No, it's the most powerful tool that we have created. Like
yes,
it's for us.
yes.
We should make full use of it. In that scenario of the future, is it the point in which we reach singularity? Is it before it? Is it after it?
You know, these are
Concepts or
things that concepts. I mean, you know, what is a location? You know, X, Y coordinates. It's all relative. We decided where zero will be and where the same with what singularity. Where is the point of? It's a beautiful sci-fi concept. It doesn't really matter.
I wanted to say that how I would define it, singularity, but just etymology, like using etymology is singular way of action. That's it, like acting as a singular entity, acting as a singular, in the same aggregated consciousness. That's what I'm seeing, or that's my understanding of it. That's why I correlated it with the scenario that we've been discussing. But it may be different. Like that's my perspective only.
Look, if that is the definition, then singularity was the goal of every society. Right now, the Pharaoh wanted singularity, quote unquote, in Egypt, where everybody thinks the same and acts the same based on what the Pharaoh, wanted to happen. If that's the definition.
That was my definition.
If it is applied for AI and machine learning, and the point where everybody thinks the same, then today, if something on TikTok is trending, then 50% of the world population already thinks that that's the thing, right? I don't know. These are very abstract concepts. And probably it will never be that everybody thinks and feels exactly the same.
So
that will never be, because we are all different slightly.
Yeah.
Unless we will all have the exact same DNA, live at the same temperature, being fed the same information all our life, there will be many singularities, but connectiveness, if we all connect and share, that it's pretty close.
Yeah.
Except for the people that live outside the system, who don't matter for the system, because they don't exist in the system.
Well, that's like in the case that we were describing, I see it impossible for them to live outside. If they live outside the system, then AI hasn't been fully.
Well, but some people, like the hippies in the 60s, decided not to believe in the system that they lived in. They were outside the system. They created their own communities, and they did not communicate with the society until they saw that you cannot survive like that. So the benefits, actually, this is the bribe, because the benefits of AI give you health and good food and the legal system and satisfy all your fantasies, are so great that very few people will choose to live outside of that system. to be like pirates fighting to survive every day. That's kind of the modern homelessness,
Mm-hmm.
will be to
Mm-hmm.
live outside the system.
And if you were to look at that Gaussian line, like there are on the left and on the whatever, like on one part and another part. So that would be one part in which you live rebellious and in a bit more less modern way of living.
Yes.
And then in that case, will the other part exist still, in which someone is outside of the system, but in a way in which they are benefiting more? That's scary.
Yeah, but very interesting question, because if and the system is good, the AI and the connectivity and everything, the pleasures and the benefits that you get highly surpass the whatever money can buy outside the system. So the super rich, the oligarchs, the people that own islands, with all the, maybe they will build their own private AI system that doesn't share their worries or whatever, but they have a lot less data. It's a 1% of the population versus 99% of the population. And data is the new oil, as they say. So
Information, basically. Yeah,
information, right, which is data.
yeah.
Um, if some people will choose to live outside the system because they are so rich that they can build their own system and they want to experiment with it, yeah, probably. You know, a couple of the multi-billionaires can get together and create their own new Davos, or their own new island where they are isolated and have their own version of AI, and they learn from the big AI if it surpasses them. But why?
So I know, but what I was thinking about is in this system, in this system, that my worry or my concern or my danger area would be highly concentrated areas of information within certain groups or individuals. Because in the future, it won't be about capital and money, it would be about information and shaping reality through that information, like basically what we've
Yeah.
been discussing.
It, look, it is probably, and this is a very good point, that there will be a new ruling class. There will be new pharaohs, right, that will live in that system as well, because the everybody being equal mantra never worked, and always, some people bubbled up to become the new rulers for a while. Then the people revolted, they cut off their heads, the Romanovs and other super rich royal families were killed off. I don't know how that will develop. Probably in that new world of super AI, there will be a couple of different categories or classes of people. The super smart that can create better algorithms to make AI even more efficient will live probably better
Mm-hmm.
and will have the incentive to continue thinking about that, while the 99% of the population will just want to have fantastic experiences and meditation or sex or food or whatever pleasure or addiction they have today. um, it's the future. It's hard to see, to predict it.
So I want to touch on two more points, and because we've highly discussed a lot about it regarding singularity, just so I can clarify that part. So singularity, what I said, it's something else, but singularity is defined as a hypothetical point in time in the future in which technology just gets out of control and it's irreversible, and basically unforeseeable changes of the future happen. So that's how a negative scenario, I would say, or a scenario in which things are portrayed as being negative. But how I see it, that's why I was saying that this is my definition. I'm saying that singularity will be, yeah, exactly that thing. When it's unforeseeable change, but unforeseeable change in a positive manner, because at that point in time we get to have a higher level of consciousness, a higher level of understanding as humankind. And yeah, you cannot foresee what's going to happen, but I'm really curious about it. Like, okay, it's
So again, I will give you the same answer. Singularity already happened hundreds of times in different spaces, right? The moment that penicillin was invented, it was a singularity in medicine against some sicknesses. The moment that Gutenberg created the press, it was a singularity event for information capture and sharing. The singularity for, I don't know, computer connectivity, whatever, is no different than this. It's just a huge technological breakthrough that once you've seen it and took part of it, it's very hard to live without it.
I I fully agree.
That's for me singularity. Now, humans, as long as we are still in charge in one way or another, can stop and push back on singularity and not use that invention from now on if we really want to. And when everybody is suffering, then yes, people make the decision not to use that. You know, the first nuclear bomb, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, were singularity events. Thanks God, we have seen the destructive power and the fear that created. We have also seen the positive effects of the Second World War stopped. The Japanese said, okay, because actually the next one would have been Tokyo.
Yeah.
You know, it was thrown on Hiroshima, Nagasaki, or Nagasaki, Hiroshima, and then the next one would have been Tokyo. And the Japanese emperor understood that it needs to stop. Hopefully, we will not get to the same experience soon with the nuclear bombs that Europe, NATO, Russians, China, and the America have. But for me, the word singularity is just I don't know, a big word that it's thrown away to scare people. It's like, oh, this and that. It's, yeah, I understand for AI, there will be a singularity, a point of no return when the machine becomes self-conscious and so smart and so that we cannot control it. So what? We are still controlling it because we can pull it out of the plug and there is no more computer, there's no more electricity, right?
Yeah, there are some concerns that you might not be able to pull it out of the plug like that. So
Well, you know, maybe we'll get to that point, and in that point, we are the Neanderthals, or we are the monkeys, and the AI self-sufficient system with robots, and maybe half of them are bionic robots, is the next species.
it might be, and it's part of evolution.
It might be, and that's evolution indeed. And maybe that's necessary to survive when Earth is scorching hot, or the next ice age comes and we cannot survive. It doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't bother me what a far away future can or cannot be, because it's going to happen regardless if it bothers me or not.
It's just part of life and life in this universe.
Exactly, of progress.
Yeah, yeah.
Of evolution, actually.
Agreed. So there's one point that I want to touch before we end the episode. The day in the future, because we didn't actually discuss this. Like, we were discussing about the future, about interconnectivity, about having AI help us live better lives for all of us through optimizing. Okay, so if you were to describe as, I don't know, simply as possible, from an individual point of view, how would that day in the future look like from your perspective or from anybody's perspective, but just so they can get a picture or an image in their mind?
So, look, as I said, the stability of any society depends on the perception of fairness from the vast majority of people. So if people perceive a society as fair or as beneficial to them, they will continue to maintain it. So if human nature doesn't change too much, then let's jump 50 years or 100 years in the future, where AI will take care of all the mundane, boring, useless stuff. You know, paying you money for the creativity, the help you provide to make the society better, making sure that your life is taken care of, your health, your family, education, all that is beneficial for the society. Laws. So I see a society that's simple. Life is beautiful. The competition between people, it's not necessary. You don't need to push somebody aside, so you can go ahead and then have an enemy that you need to be aware of because you stepped on that person and you don't sleep at night. So it's a lot more peaceful, clean, much more efficient in energy usage,
Optimized.
society optimized.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, if you need some craziness, you can, like in the TV series Westworld, or Black Mirror, you can live out your fantasies without damaging anybody.
Yeah. That.
And that I think is the future that it's coming or should be coming, where everybody can contribute, because even the stupidest so perceived people actually have ideas that can be very, very good and useful for the society. And this society will consume a lot less energy, will have a much happier life, and will be a lot more productive, because people will concentrate on giving to the society as much as possible in order to be protected and to be seen as uh, scientists or artists or creators. And here, to end our discussion, I always believed in the Bible. I'm not religious, but I believed in the sentence that God created man in his own image.
Fully agree.
And the direct result of this is that if the man was created in God's image, then man wants to be a creator. That man wants to be like a mini God. And that then the complex union of all man is God. And man, I mean men and women, of course, not
Of course. Yeah.
male. So we, yes, were created in the image of God, because that's how God created us. But at the same time, we together in this godly image are God. And that is the fundamental building block of why humanity has a positive direction, because we make mistakes and we do horrible things. And each and every one of us is capable of the most horrific crimes if pushed or found in the wrong place. So in a way, there are not good people and bad people by definition. There are good people and bad people by the actions that they take, or that are caught for doing what they do. And I think this will continue. This is how we are. This is how we've been created, and this is how we will create the future.
I couldn't agree more with this analogy. I truly believe that we are creators of the future. That's what we are in essence.
Yes.
So, as a last, how can I say, advice for our audience, what can each of us act on now in order to get to that point in time of the future? What can we do now?
Learn, study, and don't be afraid of following your dreams, because your dreams, your desires, unless they are negative, right, and means killing or destroying other people.
It's
as long
about
as they
creating
are,
the future and adding
yes,
value to it, as you said.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, and that's why, out of the 99% of the population, from time to time, some new people become and go into the 1%. Elon Musk and Zuckerberg and many others, people that I met and know, because they had a dream and they went and were not afraid to implement it, and they sacrificed a lot and took a lot of risks, and they are reaping the rewards, and they are the leaders of the world and creating the future. Now, some of those people in the 1% and the politicians are, some of them, just like statistics, right, are the worst possible scum and garbage that by luck got into the place where they are. But some are actually the gods of the future, the creators. And that's how statistic works.
That's what I was asking. It's so good that we got to this. That's what I was asking when I was saying, about that, that individuals that get from that system, that big system, and get in that 1%. And how are they different? And from what I understand is the fact that they dare to believe in their dreams, they dare to change, and they dare to understand that reality is here for them to
Yes,
change.
yes, and dare to do the unconventional thing. Dare to say things that are not considered common or polite things to do. And you have to, because change is the only constant in the universe. The only constant is change.
That's deep. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you very much. I
Thank
mean,
you.
this is a great representation of the reason and the why behind doing this podcast. I truly appreciate our discussion together today. Thank you very much for
Thank you.
this discussion.
I thank you for your time.
Hope to talk to you soon. Thank you very much, George.
Bye. Bye.